questions in the Q&A box anytime. So today we're talking about personal branding to build trust, credibility, and your career in venture. And here is our Strut team. Like Kristen mentioned, we're a consulting agency providing unparalleled expertise across the full fund cycle and holistic VC landscape. So for Strut clients, for any service, they gain access to our team of experts with experience across VC operations, marketing, events, investor relations, portfolio services, and fractional finance. So a bit about myself. This is my ninth year doing VC comms. Before Strut, I was the marketing manager at a global deep tech VC firm called SOSV. One of my biggest achievements there is co-planning and producing and promoting the Climate Tech Summit in 2021 with over 4,000 registrants and Bill Gates as our keynote speaker. Also featured many of our staff members and leadership as panelists. I come from a life sciences communication background, and when I'm not at Strut, I am hosting my radio show in Madison. So I'll pass it over to Brian.
Thanks so much for having me, Kayla, and thanks to the whole Strut team. Kristen and I worked together, I think, at the very first VC I ever worked with. That was during the first wave of AI, so you know how long ago that was. Quick bit on me, I spent the last 10 years in San Francisco working with many startups on marketing and growth, also a number of VCs on marketing, content, and PR, both independently and during my time at Silicon Valley Bank, where I did marketing strategy, and JP Morgan, where I ran marketing for most of the commercial bank. In my 20s, I built an agency that is now pretty large called Walker Sands. And today I'm back in Chicago and launching a new company called Department of Growth, where we build whole fractional marketing and sales teams for seed and Series A startups and VCs looking to get to the next stage faster. Okay, so today we're here to talk about personal branding, and I promise that I will. But first, I'll start with a quick story. It's a story about how to find a jaguar in the jungle. Before this whole marketing thing, I was an archaeologist, and I worked in Belize, Central America, studying the ancient Maya, specifically how the Maya used caves for ritual purposes, including ritual sacrifice. So it was very Indiana Jones kind of stuff. Anyway, one night we had worked late in a cave, and so we were hiking back through the jungle in the dark. This was a bit unusual because the jungle at night is terrifying. It's loud, it's full of animal noises and things that can bite, sting, and eat you. Imagine a single file line with half a dozen folks with somebody up front with a machete going like this. You can only see a few feet to either side because of the bush, and only as far ahead as your headlamp can see. Well, one of the local guides on our team motions me to the back of the line, and he asked me a question. He says, "Would you like to see a jaguar?" And without thinking, I say, "Sure," which was my first mistake. You see, it's a bit of a joke in Belize that's known for jaguars, but they only come out at night and they're over a wide range, so you can never really see them in the wild. So anyway, I say yes. So he motions me to the back and he says, "Okay, let's let everyone else go on ahead. And I want you to be really quiet and wait." I say, "Okay," so we wait. Eventually, he has us turn off our headlamps. We wait. Then he says, "Kneel down on the forest floor." And we wait. By this point, everyone is long gone. I can't even see the light from their headlamps. We're alone in the jungle at night in the dark. Eventually he whispers, "When I tell you, look behind you." Okay, 1, 2, 3. We turn around, I flip on my light, and there, about 20 feet down this narrow hand-cut path, just as far as my light can reach, staring right at me is a giant black jaguar, crouched and ready to strike. At this point, two things happen. One, I freak out, understandable, I'm about to be cat food. And two, luckily, The jaguar also gets scared and bounds off into the night, I think because of the light. But my mind is racing, and all I can stammer out is how? How did you know? And very calmly, he says, I heard her. She's been following us. In fact, she's been stalking us all night long. Stalking. Okay. And he says, we had to separate ourselves from the group and act like we were injured so that she would come close. So I start wondering, how did he know how long to wait? Which, think about it. But before I get too deep in that one, he gives us the moral of our little story, which is this. He says, when you want to hunt a jaguar, you don't hunt a jaguar. You let the jaguar hunt you. You don't hunt a jaguar, you let the jaguar hunt you. That is why we're talking about personal branding today, and that's what we're trying to do. If you put yourself in the right place, the right jungle, at the right time, with the right message and a powerful story, the big cats will come to you. The other reason I tell you this story is that happened to me over 20 years ago, and I'm still talking about it and still telling this kind of story, and I'm still, thinking myself as an archaeologist. And so the way I look at this is everything starts with a story. A business starts with a story, your business plan. A career starts with a story. Telling that story over and over again can give us the momentum needed to last when things get tough, and the clarity and force of will to create something real out of an uncertain future. Telling a story is also the best way to communicate. Stories give context on who we are and where we're headed, and without that context, there's no meaning. With no meaning, there's no communication and no connection, which is the whole point. Today, we're going to talk about how to tell your story. Kayla?
Yes. So personal branding, it's the process of intentionally shaping and managing the public perception of yourself so that you can establish credibility, authority, and recognition in your industry. So we know that many of you right now might be thinking that this isn't for you, or you might be thinking that you're too shy or introverted to do personal branding. So you can definitely relax because we're not trying to change you. This is about telling your story in a way that works for you.
Yeah, we want to build from who you are and lead with ideas. Generally, I think the time has come to hear from the GPs that aren't already shouting from the rooftops. Those that might not yet feel comfortable giving a TED talk, or that haven't written their full philosophical treatise down yet. It's okay, nobody really has. I deal with many VCs, and I tend to see kind of both styles of GP. And I'll tell you, I think it's time for the rise of the humble GP. The point is, this is something you can do, and we're going to show you where to start.
And we'll also show you, talk about what not to do. So personal branding, it's not sales and it's not bragging. We've all seen enough of this actually, to the point where it's a joke in the industry. And so we're here today to emphasize the need for authenticity in this industry. It's refreshing, and it's important to avoid self-promotion pitfalls like coming across as braggy, because we all know about VC brags. Personal branding is simply letting the world know who you are and what you stand for. So there is a balance between humility and self-promotion, and it lies in being able to showcase your successes and expertise while remaining modest. So this means acknowledging your accomplishments without boasting, without bragging, and giving credit where credit's due, particularly to your portfolio companies.
Yeah, I mean, why do we do this? And to really hit the point home, it establishes credibility and trust among entrepreneurs seeking funding and LPs interested in funds. Obviously, it can differentiate you in a very crowded VC market, and there is so much competition in VC right now. I believe there's over 20,000 VCs, I think, last time I saw. And newsflash, most VCs sound pretty much the same. I actually did some research on this a couple of years ago where we looked at the words VC used on their website, and it's all kind of the same. And if you want to stand out, you really need to put your own stake in the dirt.
Yes, so especially if you're a new firm without a solid track record, you need to start establishing yourself in other ways like thought leadership and press coverage to build that credibility with LPs. So simply put, if you don't put energy towards your personal brand, it's a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity to establish your reputation, to differentiate yourself, and to build trust and build credibility, which takes time.
I'd say the most important reason to do this is because it will happen whether you like it or not. Your personal brand is your positioning, and that's where you reside in the minds of founders, other VCs, corporates, the media. It's how they will place you relative to other venture capitalists. And you have to consciously build this platform, just as you would with a corporate positioning, because if you don't, you run the risk of being overlooked or being pigeonholed. Eventually, your portfolio will become your brand. Um, but with effort, you can do more and you can help things along the way, especially when you're just getting into the game. I talk with a lot of junior partners and directors and principals at VCs that are just starting to build this platform. And so I guess the question is what platform to choose? Well, start where there's white space. Where is there white space in your niche, your sector, your stage? What isn't being said? What formats are others maybe not hip to? What do you have a perspective on that will both help you and your brand and also help your fund? In one sentence, I'd say, what are you uniquely able to discuss in a unique way? And just with anything else, it's most important that you actually do this. So I took a class once with a writer named Alex Kotlowitz, and he told me this. He said, when you write a book, you better pick something that you like because you're going to be living with this for the next 2 years. Well, the story that you're going to build, you're going to be living with for a long time. Kayla.
Okay, so the personal brand of a GP and the firm's brand are inextricably linked. And like Brian said, in a time when many VC firms invest in the same areas, it's the people leading the firm that can become the differentiator.
Yeah, and I see building the brands of partners as thought leaders and building the personal brands as just one of the eight major types of venture capital marketing that I'm seeing out there. In addition to, telling a story of success around your investments, but also around your portfolio. That's like the club that you want to join, how you operationally help your portfolio founders, and of course, your unique and special place in the ecosystem.
Mhm.
Um, it's one part of the whole.
Mhm. So let's talk about how we build a personal brand. The obvious answer is to start producing original content. And why do we do content? It's because regular quality content can position you as a thought leader. It can keep you top of mind with your audiences and drive inbound interest, aka letting the Jaguar come to you.
Thank you, Kayla. There's a bunch of examples I think that we've all seen of people doing this really well. The classic ones are First Round, Capital, Redpoint under Tom. Some newer examples like NFX, I think has had some great content. I see a lot of the millennial and Gen Z VCs taking this to the next level and doing a great job here. A lot of younger founders are doing this well with video content and things as well. I don't know, one recent example, Landon Campbell here at Drive in Chicago, I think is a great example as well.
I want to mention the GPs at Ridgeline in Memphis who are consistently putting out why we invested posts when their companies are reaching milestones, which has been working to elevate them in their enterprise technology ecosystem. And also my former colleague, Ryan Bethencourt, who is managing partner at Sustainable Food Ventures, and a founder at a food tech startup himself, Wild Earth, who's frequently, posting on LinkedIn and elevating himself there by commenting on major news stories about the food industry and not being afraid to share his opinion on things and his predictions for the future of food. So he receives a lot of engagement and visibility all the time. So that's why he stands out to me.
So actually go back to that one for a second.
Sure.
How do we do this? Well, kind of my rule is content can be king, but only if you promote it. And so what do I mean there? You hunter walk, by the way, totally. Before you write, maybe think about how you're going to distribute that content. So just popping it on Medium with your 7 followers and your cousin is not always the most effective way. Maybe you can pitch it first to the media as a contributed submission. That's actually one of the easiest types of PR to get. Think in terms of a program and an editorial calendar over time, meaning plan multiple pieces over months. This is because any one piece isn't likely to move the needle on its own, but also you need to build this story over time. But I think the most important piece of advice here is you actually have to finish the thing, meaning maybe that 5,000 word think piece that takes 8 weeks to write and you might never finish isn't the way to go. Instead, find ways to do quick turn content, to churn out shorter, pithier pieces that you can do more often. So these are Q&As with founders, the dreaded podcast, themes we heard posts after a conference, or let's say an interview that you can transcribe with AI and turn into a 500 word piece in half an hour. That is the way to actually make this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of short styles of content that really work well as a blog post or even as a LinkedIn post, depending on how much time you have. So for those Q&As with founders, they can actually answer those questions over email, which saves even more time. You can pull together a why we invested piece by answering the same questions or questions that are customized for that company each time and do that in Q&A format. So the big thing I want to emphasize is that consistency and doing this regularly is more important than worrying about it being absolutely perfect.
Yes, just start is the key. Especially if you're new to venture, right? This is gonna take time. It's gonna not be perfect. Um, so just get it out there. I guess the next rule is you're probably not going to do that from what I just said. You already have a day job and a pretty tough one. So you've got to find ways to get this actually done and done for you. Fortunately, writing is one of the easiest things to outsource. Well, not easiest, but it's a possible thing to outsource. It's not particularly expensive. There's great writers out there that'll do most parts of this content process for like 75 an hour or even less if you've got a great management system in place. But you need to be realistic with them as well. They're not going to get it to 110%. I think the hardest part of this whole process is getting it out of your head and into an outline, right? Or getting it into an editorial calendar of what you want to write about. From there, you can have someone interview you, get that outline together, and then write a piece, maybe to what, 70%, Kayla, when you're working with writers. From there, the rest is kind of up to you.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I want to emphasize is that social media is a cocktail party, not a sales
Like that.
pitch. Yeah, so don't always talk about yourself. Like, yes, we're going to highlight your portfolio and do the Q&As and the why we invested, but you should also be weaving in top level content about the industry that you're in and do whatever mix feels right to you, whether it's 50-50 or maybe it's 10% top level content. The big thing is no one likes to be talking to someone at a party who's only talking about themselves the whole time.
I like that. Yeah, the goal is to produce, several pieces a week, and the momentum I think is as important as anything else. And it doesn't all have to be original thought, right? I recommend to startups often about 2/3 commentary, industry level news to maybe 1/3 original content. You can really move that slider to figure out what's right for you, but give yourself a little leeway just to be out there on these platforms commenting on what's happening because the story isn't always about you.
So now let's talk about selecting the right platform for you. I would love to see in the comments what platform everyone here on this call prefers to use, what platform is working for you. The big thing is being authentic to yourself, because in the end, um, you got to do it your way on the platforms that you will actually use on the regular. So select the right platforms for your personal brand. Are you more of a speaker or a networker and events are your thing? Or are you more of a writer and want to be behind the scenes, sending newsletters? Play to your strengths.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I mean, I hear this all the time. Do I have to be on Twitter if I'm not already on there and a star on the platform? Well, maybe not. We know that that one's a bit weird right now. But if you're not a writer, speaking can be a great way to go. A couple of notes on that is speaking engagements don't just happen. You need a concerted program around this. Um, you can increase your chances of getting speaking slots by reaching out early, making a plan for this across the year, not waiting till 2 minutes before the thing and hoping you'll get it. Demonstrating your value and your expertise before that by publishing your own content, a la what we're talking about today. You can also co-sponsor the event. There's a lot of ways in, kind of on the back door. I think generally you just need to pick the format that you vibe with and and go with it. It's all about what you're actually going to do week in and week out.
Mhm. Right. I work with some clients who really prefer to do things over newsletters, and they segment their newsletters and customize them for different types of prospective LPs. So that works really well for people who don't want to be on social media but understand the power of personal branding and putting yourself out there. So if you do write a newsletter every month, a good way to start in general is featuring your portfolio highlights, events and opportunities to connect, and then a confidential section for your current and prospective LPs. And I have seen a lot of great engagement on those. LinkedIn, obviously, most important platform to be on in the VC industry right now. If you don't know what to post on LinkedIn, start by sharing your company pages updates and then adding a comment when you share the company posts or your portfolio companies as well. Photos perform really well. So I want to emphasize the importance of taking a photo when you go to a conference, when you go to visit a
Yeah.
portfolio company at their office. Even if it feels awkward and you feel shy, just take a photo. I struggle with it as well, but then you will see when you look at which posts perform well, it's the photos and the short videos for that matter too.
Totally. Yeah. LinkedIn has become, even more the spot to be. I think if you get any great press coverage or you write a really great article, you could pin it to the top of your profile. Pretty obvious. Um, links, put links in the comments, not in the main post. LinkedIn hates it when people are, clicking off platform. You can also game the algorithm a bit. If you've got a great post, text all your friends and have them like it right away. And if you get enough of that within like the first hour or two, it has a good chance of going a little bit more viral.
Mhm. The company blog is always a great place to create content. Anything that's considered owned media that you don't have to pay for, is always a great way to boost your visibility. So basically, we talked about a great way to add your personal flavor to any news cycle about your portfolio companies is writing up a thoughtful piece about why you invested. And a good way to do that is get ahead of the company news, write it in advance, and have it ready to go after the company announces this news on their own or gains that press coverage. So you're adding something of value to the conversation. Say something that someone else isn't saying. It's your own unique take and your experience working with this company. Some questions you can answer. What was the most exciting thing when you first met the founder? What's the problem that the company is solving? Going forward, how will you support them without beyond providing capital are just some examples of questions you can answer. So a strategy that I recommend for thought leadership, for doing this without appearing boastful, is always remembering that the companies are the star of the show. So you can share your insights and expertise without overshadowing others.
Totally. I think maybe the last part of telling your story is getting somebody else to do it for you. A big part of your plan should be public relations, and this will give you vastly more reach and third-party validation and credibility than just doing it on your own. Why? Well, VC is made for PR. Normally, when I'm dealing with a company or an executive, we're all figuring out how to make them sound like an expert. Well, you already are, right? And you are by the very nature of your business. You have this industry level, global level view on a sector and on tech, right? That is huge. And that is made for commentary to the media, and they get it, and they love commentary from venture capitalists. Like, those are when I was doing pitching back in the day, it was always easy to get those stories out there. Also, you should already be writing, which is what we're talking about today, and putting those pieces that you've already written out as a contributed content piece or contributed submission is really easy. This is one of the easiest ways to do PR. And this is things like the Forbes Tech Council, which I think at this point is the worst kept secret in tech. But there's also, TechCrunch does this. A lot of other things do it. A lot of industry publications will take these. The whole idea for PR is just to package things up in a way where you tell the whole story and you're selling a story to journalists, but you do it in a way that they have everything they need to write that piece in 10 minutes, right? Well, contributed content's even easier. It's already written, and they'll take it.
Yeah, +1 for the Forbes Council. If you're wondering whether you would be accepted to the Forbes Council, the good news is it's free to apply. It's a great way to boost your personal profile to a wider audience. You can share your posts on social media after they go out on Forbes and pin them to the top of your profile. So when prospective LPs, for example, are looking you up on LinkedIn, and they can see that right away. And the best part about Forbes Council, in my opinion, is you literally cannot be self-promotional, because they won't even accept your article if you try to be. So here on the Forbes Council, you have to share actionable advice with Forbes readers. And then you mention your firm in your bio, and then indirectly promote yourself there.
Totally. It's all about the byline, right? And just generally, if you write a great piece, think about submitting that content elsewhere before you put it on LinkedIn or Medium. I know this is a webinar about personal branding, but I think in the end, it's not really about you. The way to get media attention is to connect your story to bigger trends and outside things that are already happening, news that people already care about, right? You are not the story. You are an expert that will comment on it. Or maybe you're the media's conduit to a story that they might otherwise not see. There's lots of ways to do this, including events, which gives a real-time, a time-sensitive reason to write about you now. Data, which is my personal favorite. I wrote a chapter in a book on data-driven marketing. Contributed content, fundraising announcements, but again, it's the story about the solution, not just that somebody raised $5 million. And also a process known as source filing, which is simply getting your name in a journalist Rolodex, if people still use Rolodex anymore, so that they know to call you when they have a story touching your area of expertise. So at the bottom of any pitch or any contributed piece, it would say something like this. Hey, even if you don't like this story, call me if you ever need a perspective on deep tech, whatever. If you build these relationships with journalists over time, personally, some of these can pay dividends for years and years to come. And that's not only for the firm, but again, for you as a GP.
Yes, and you can do that without pitching a story too. It's just connecting and making yourself a resource. Okay, so let's talk about outsourcing. We talked about outsourcing social media. There's actually a lot of things that can be taken off your plate. The thing that I see all the time is that a lot of GPs understand the importance of being active on social media and doing personal branding, but it keeps getting pushed down in terms of priority because you're always putting out fires. So you can hire someone to manage your personal social media account, or to write social media posts and email them to you for you to post on your own accounts. people to help write blog posts or interview you to create a blog post and just get it to that point where all you need to do is edit it and get to the finish line. You can hire folks to create your pitch decks, presentations, and update your website. And we actually know a lot of great people who do these things. So feel free to reach out to us for referrals.
Yeah, both Kayla and I are working as, fractional CMOs for VCs as well as startups. And look, you have a really hard day job and a night job, and marketing is probably not the first thing you got into venture to do, right? So it's all about momentum, and it's the kind of thing that you can't do once and then do it again in 4 months, right? You need to build a process and a system for this to get done, even when you don't have the focus on it. And there's great people out there now. Like, the world is all fractional. We used to just call it consulting, but you can find great people in all of these areas. And so I would set up a system so that you can and keep things moving. Um, I think we about got there, right, Kayla? We're on to Q&A.
Yes. And thanks for commenting in the chat too. It's good to hear from everybody.
Well, let's take questions. Yeah.
Feel free to put them in the chat.
I have a question.
Yes.
If we don't have one from the crowd. How do you guys think about tying these efforts to budget, or how to spend the time and money that you have on the most critical things? How do you think about making those decisions? Especially if you have limited funds per se.
Yep. Maybe I'll start, and Kayla, you can jump in, fix whatever I mess up. Look, attribution for marketing is always hard. Attribution for venture capital marketing is very hard because it's often very indirect. So I really look at this structurally. I think about what your goals are and what you actually need to get done, and what types of marketing we think are going to get you there, right? And maybe you take the menu approach of kind of small, medium, large, or what you can afford, right? A new fund can't do the same thing as somebody on fund 4. But I think often in terms of the activity, the marketing activity it will take to get there, and the people needed to do that. And again, if you're using fractional resources, you can kind of get into this game without spending a ton to test things. That said, some of these things are not the quickest experiments. So content, you're not going to know if it works day 2. So I would give things at least a few months to build up over time, and then track them as closely as you can. I do weekly KPI tracking with all of my clients across the funnel, and any one of those metrics might not be that meaningful. So website visitors or how much engagement you had on a particular post. But if you're looking at all of these kind of globally, and you look at it over time, and you have a benchmark that if you're getting closer or further from, it can really help. And that really tells you kind of what to turn up and what to turn down.
And if you have any prior evidence of how things have performed, if there's anything you've tried in the past and see that something's working well, you could just double down on it. And a big recommendation from me is don't try to do too many things. Figure out what's working as soon as you can and focus on that.
See a question here in the chat. What is trend jacking? That's a PR term. Basically, it means you're scanning the news and things that are happening, let's say in tech. Sometimes with just a bigger company, people are always writing about, let's say something happens with Google that is news. And you can use that as fodder for commentary and for other articles. So you read that, oh, something is happening in this area of AI today. I happen to know a lot about that. You write back to the journalist or others and say, hey, I saw you writing about this. Maybe for the next piece, think about this. And sometimes those can get you some really quick placements without a lot of pre-work, basically.
I want to go to the question about getting better deal flow through marketing, PR, content, etc. So something that I've seen throughout my career is the number one, most effective marketing tactic of all is when your founders refer other founders to you. So if you are highlighting your founders through like a Q&A, for example, on your blog, and then they share that with their network, that's an example of how a content strategy can help more deal flow come to you.
Yeah, it expands your reach, right?
Mhm.
And you're just getting outside of your own kind of primary network, and other people are going to see what you're talking about. I mean, the philosophically with content, that also is for engagement and keeps you kind of top of mind with these people over time. You really never know where someone's going to hear of you and how many times it's going to take before they get the message, or when they might be ready to raise and they want to talk to you. And so that's why you do newsletters. That's why you do blogging. That's why you kind of keep this drumbeat going, so that you're there, with, when they're ready. I mean, marketing is often a time sensitive problem of being there at the right moment.
Mhm.
What else we got here? How should marketing efforts for first-time VCs be different than for more seasoned ones? Good questions.
Mhm.
What do you think, Kayla?
I would say more seasoned VCs have their track record, which really leads the way eventually is going to be the track record. So first time VCs can focus more about their why, why did they come here to do
Mm-hmm.
this? What's their story? What's their expertise? Maybe they have their own experience as a founder. Maybe they have incredible people in their network that they can start highlighting before they have like a large portfolio. There's all kinds of people you could bring into this process.
Love it. I just talked with one of my clients about their why, and leading with that, even over their investment thesis and things, and how important that can be. Yeah, I think building your platform through content is a great way for new VCs to start getting out there. I also see a lot of success of young VCs building unique communities. And that could be whatever. That could be going on the taco rides, once a quarter. It could be having networking nights, and they could be on all types of different um, topics. It's what is authentic to you, what will you actually do, and can you get 10, 20, 30 people together regularly um, to talk about it? And it's not you talking at them, it's you facilitating this conversation. And if you do, they will come to you over time.
Mhm. There's also a question about are there articles or examples of personal PR stacks, tools, workflows, etc. that we can point to or recommend. So I will have to get back to you about an article about it, but we could talk about some things that we know um, work if we, Brian, if you and I have any examples about tools, workflows. I personally use Feedly to track RSS feeds instead of having the Google alerts come into your inbox. So if you want to, really get ahead of portfolio news and, get in sync with portfolio news, Feedly is a great place. You can follow RSS feeds of Google alerts, but also topics in there that you want to talk about.
I love that. By the way, kind of social selling and uh, doing that as a program where you're constantly kind of scanning for news about your portfolio, about prospective, let's say LPs, things like that, and using that as a way to engage them online and build relationships, maybe before you have that first meeting. I've had a lot of success with that, and it's all about setting up these RSS feeds or other feeds to kind of have this market view. So I think that's pretty interesting. Look, PR, back in the day, it was a bit of the rifle versus the shotgun approach, and you would kind of spray and parade. You'd like large lists of journalists. I don't think that's really as effective as it maybe once was. So most of it can be done with Gmail and with like building up your own media list, one or two at a time, and scraping their emails on Hunter.io or something like that, or you can usually find it, or you DM them on Twitter. None of this is rocket science. It's just concerted effort and doing it a little bit every week, every month, and building it up over time, and getting somebody else to do it when you can. Have any others here?
Yeah. How should marketing efforts for first-time VCs be different than for more seasoned ones?
I
So
think, yeah,
we
we
got
got
to that,
that one.
We
but
did that. Okay, sorry. Oh, then
Yeah.
the next one, sorry, is
Yeah.
if you could go back and do it over, what would you have done differently with your own brand marketing efforts, either individual or firm level?
start sooner.
Yeah. So I started writing a book, the first book I started writing on marketing when I was like 23. Okay. I never finished it. It's like sitting in a stack of papers with everything else. And I could have been building, I have so many ideas, good, bad, or ugly, but I could have been building this like a lot sooner, and come to now when, oh, I want to leverage this for, let's say in your case, I want to leverage it for deal flow. Like, look, just get out there. I saw it with bankers, by the way. I've been in banking. Like it was the ones that built these communities. It was that, built groups of founders and had a niche that they were known for, that over time, they were the ones that got promoted. Became more successful and made a lot of cash. And I think it's kind of the same in VC, right? It's building these communities, however you're going to do it as early as you can. That's going to help you when you switch funds. That's going to help you get promoted in your own fund. And certainly it's going to help you with deal flow and eventually with fundraising.
There are two questions in the Q&A. One is, can you talk about how AI could speed up content creation, i.e., do you think about ChatGPT as a way to help create quick, shorter content and turn it out faster on social media? While you guys are answering that, I'm going to drop my favorite resources for that in the chat, but I'll let you speak.
That's awesome. The answer is yes. I'm
Yes.
personally not using it a ton, but a lot of my clients are. Things like WordTune, something I thought was pretty interesting inside of kind of Google Docs. We're using it. I'm in positioning statement talks with folks, and we're like constantly putting it in ChatGPT to see 15 ways to write these things. So I love the back and forth on it. I'm about to launch a website, by the way, and we're using AI in a really interesting way for design, and I've seen how that kind of process works. So I'm very bullish on where it's going, but it's saving a lot of people behind the scenes a lot of time. You just have to set it up right.
You got to set it up right, and rarely do I ever use the results as is. So I could, write up an article and then ask ChatGPT to give me 10 ideas for titles for the article. So it's a really great way to help me brainstorm, especially if you're a small team, you don't have a marketing team. It's a really, really great resource for that. Also for newsletter summaries and blog post summaries. So sometimes when you publish a blog post and publish it to your website, it asks you to like make a short summary of it. ChatGPT is incredible for things like that. So I wouldn't rely on it to provide the insights, but to scan the insights and provide the takeaways and do things like that. I use it all the time.
Yeah, summaries and transcription, by the way, is awesome. I'm using that for almost every interview and kind of, deep session I do now. And
Right.
it takes me 15 minutes to, make a great post. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And like that's the key. How can you do this often? It doesn't take you 5 hours, it takes you one, something you can realistically do and add to what you're already, the work you're already doing. And if you do this over time, it really Otter AI for sure. This will change things for you.
Mhm.
Other question on the Q&A is advice on how to balance and whether or not to comment on political or social hot topics, especially if the topic is relevant to your, I'm assuming, fund thesis.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a balance on this, right? It can go south. I typically tell folks to avoid that, but over time, look, you have to take a stand on things, and you have to, if it's authentically something that you know a lot about and fits with your fund, hey, go at it. I mean, some of those things can have a ton of reach,
Mhm.
but maybe not the first post I would be commenting on.
Right. I would say take it on a case by case basis and stay true to who you are. Don't do it just to do it. But if it is
Yeah.
something you want to comment on, and I will say trust your gut. Throughout my career, if I've ever second guessed, like, should I post this? I'm usually right about the reason why I'm second guessing it in the first place. So definitely trust your gut.
Yeah, and build your platform before that so people know again what you stand for and and what you write about, so they have context for any of these things. So it helps some of this get taken not out of context.
Another one just dropped in. What are your tips for getting virality? Am I saying that word? Virality as a VC on social media, particularly platforms like TikTok, Instagram, laps for the younger generation, such as Gen Z/millennial.
You have a thought, Kayla?
I would say, for TikTok, it's all about jumping on those trends really, really soon. Like I can think of a video format that a lot of people are doing. I don't know the name of this format, but where you're walking, you could say, I'm a VC. Some people watching might know what I'm talking about here. So it's about being quick, if it's on a platform like that. So if you have the bandwidth to do that, that would be a really good way to get more virality.
Yeah, it's something I'm still learning. I actually work with some really young kind of social media influencers and people that are kind of consulting on this, and the way they dissect a video and exactly how they plan a lot of these things out. Do I show my teeth? What is this? What am I saying? It's amazing. I've never really thought this much about it. One of the things that I've learned is, copy someone else, copy a video that already has done really well, and try and figure out what it's doing, and then kind of do that for you. But no, this is definitely a process. The content still has to be good. I don't know if everyone saw the Liquid Death thing yesterday. Awesome, with Elf. That was an ad week. Check it out. A great video. And again, I wouldn't expect it to happen on the first one, but it's something you need to build up over time. And VC TikTok is definitely a thing. So
Right.
this stuff is coming.
Right. And if you're going to do it, make sure you're not doing it just to do it, that it's because it feels right to you. You have something good to share. And before you post anything or consider being active on any platform, consider, is this where my audience is? And if that is where your audience is, think about who they are and what they care about. Why would they want to watch it? Why would they want to comment? Why would they want to share? So you can always kind of use that as an internal guide before you decide what platforms to be on and what to post on those platforms. Those are good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. And then my only other add on that is kind of just doubling down on make sure bullet is right and that you can be consistent on it, because doing it erratically doesn't have long-term positive reverberations for followership and playing the algorithms right. So dedicating both a resource, consistency, resource, time and money is critical, I think, to see long-term success and good metrics on that.
Totally.
Which is, I know,
get started.
easier. Yeah,
get out
I
there.
know it's all easier
it.
said than done, but yeah.
Right back. I'm going on TikTok.
Yeah, seriously, we're all learning, right? And no, Kristen, Kayla, thanks so much for putting this together and for having us on, to the whole Strut team, and thanks to everybody for joining today. This was great. Please reach out to all of us if you have other questions or you want to talk through anything or just jam on marketing. We're here to help.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for joining. See you soon.